Hi, Gaye DeRusso with the Majestic rider here today with Goldie. And I've already worked her at her flat walk and her running walk, so I'm going to work at her canter and some at her saddle gait. And so I figured I would show you. The camera wasn't working, so I got off to fix it. So left is her worst direction, so that's the direction I'm going to go first. She didn't really understand the canter cue, so I'm half halting, shifting my way to the outside, asking with my outside leg. And I'm actually using a jump to help her to figure it out. And then I'm using a jump to help balance her. So I'm trying to get her slower and a little bit more of an uplifting canter. Hers is just a little bit flat. So we're going to ask her over this little cross rail up here. And we'll see what happens. So I might get it over it, or I might just get the canter after the cross rail. She gets a little antsy. Canter. Canter. So I'm going to canter a little bit. That time she kind of squirted a little bit. She doesn't usually do that anymore. So she's unbalanced, so we're going to come back. And we're just going to gait a little bit. So she's a little antsier today than she was yesterday. And right now she's step pacing, so we want to slow it down. So I'm going to put a little bend on her and try to get her to relax back down. So with her, I'm working on canter transition because she gets a little amped up. So we want to canter a little bit, and then we want to gait or walk or do something else. But some of these horses, it can take some time to settle them back down. And once, you're working on the canter, those of them that are usually a little pacey can get nervous because they don't know what to do with their legs, and it makes them uncomfortable, and they feel off balance. So they get nervous and they get fast, and then their legs get even a little bit crazier. So she's better now, but I still want her to be a little bit more relaxed. So with her, when I'm trying to help her with her gait, and she's getting a little step pacey, now that I taught her how to do shoulder in and move over without being so anxious, I can do those things, and now they can help me. As I'm going around now, sometimes she's doing a running walk, sometimes she's doing a saddle gait, and sometimes she's step pacing. That's okay. That's what happens in the beginning. So before I ask for the canter again, I want her a little bit more relaxed. She's getting there. So I like doing this exercise because it teaches the horse not to worry so much about their canter, that we're not going to do it very long. And we're doing upward transitions. Upward means going faster, so we're doing a transition towards the canter. And then we're doing a downward transition, which means we're coming back to a slower speed, and that is her gait. So I get to work on a couple things at the same time, and then I also get to work on her brain. So Tilly was like this too. She got very anxious when I cantered her. And people say, what do I do? The horse gets freaked out when I'm cantering it. And I go, transitions. And they just look at me like I'm nuts. That's all you got to do, but you got to do it all the time. Go upward and downward, and then all of a sudden it'll click into your horse's brain like, oh, when she asked me to canter, I only got to go a couple of steps, so I'm not going to panic so much anymore. And those pacey ones can fall out of the canter, they can cross canter, they can bunny hop, they can do all sorts of stuff. So you're just trying to get a couple good steps and then bring them back down. Each horse is different. Goldie here has a shorter stride, and she can canter, but what happens to her as she goes to the left, now she's getting more relaxed, is she starts gaiting and cantering, and it's not like what I call a gait lope. It's not a real comfortable, like half cantering. It kind of feels more like, she's strung out. And you'll see she's throwing her head. She's having a couple little fits. Who knows if it's her hair or she's just being not liking something. All right, so she's slow enough that I'm going to head for that cross rail, and I'm going to ask for the canter. And I'm just acting like I'm not doing anything right now. Now I'm going to half halt shift my weight, right leg canter. So I kind of pumped my way into the canter. That means I pumped my body to help her to get it. Kind of pushed her. And I'm riding a little bit in my thigh because she's not the most comfortable yet. Now I'm going to sit a little bit deeper. And there she slowed down. Now I'm going to come back to the gait. Easy. She just pulled on me. I just held. Don't fight back with him. Now she's step pacing. Now she's starting to do more of a running walk. Okay? So you'll see this time she slowed down much quicker. And she's like, oh, I remember. We did this yesterday. We just go around 20 times at the gate and then we canter a little bit. Okay? So what I'm trying to do is get her to relax, get her to be more balanced, get her so I can get a slower canter out of her. And then I'm going to use these jumps to help me a little bit. Once she gets more relaxed, I'll try to canter over some of them. Now, if you were taught how to jump, that's a good exercise for you to do. If you weren't taught how to jump, then that's not a good exercise. Just use the poles. Because they're going to do a bigger movement with the cross rails versus just poles on the ground, okay? And poles work just fine. I like to jump, so I like to have the cross rails. And again, all I'm doing is, when she doesn't feel very smooth, she feels more like she's doing a step pace. I'm either doing a shoulder in or just leg yielding her over. And again, she still keeps kind of throwing her head. Sometimes this is just the horse. Each one is different. She does have all the hair. She has the braid smacking her in the head, but when we don't braid it, it did go into a big knot, and she still shook her head. So you try to figure it out, and sometimes you're like, I don't know why they're doing it. Let's just move on. Okay, so now she's calmer, so that took me much less time. Something over there just spooked her a little bit. So if she's good, I'm going to come around, and I'm going to ask her to canter again. Now, in the beginning, I like to do the same cross rail or the same pole, so the horse figures out, oh, when we get there, she has me to canter, instead of using different ones. But over time, I'm going to use any pole or any jump. And when she's throwing her head up, which you see her doing once in a while, I just hold. It's just a light hold, and then I just release when it comes down. Okay? So you can walk into the pole. You don't want to really pace into it. So you can walk or you can gait and then half halt shift your weight, canter. So there, see, she got it much quicker. And she feels pretty good, so I'm going to sit a little bit deeper in the saddle. Now I got to push her a little bit because she's getting flat and she's half canter gaited. So yeah, I can go a little faster to get a little bit better canter. Now she's kind of, I'm pumping, but she's not really cantering because she's squeezing. So if you get back to a pole, it'll help you get the canter again. There we go. So that helped her get it again. So she's kind of falling out of it. I'm going to try and keep the same speed and just go back to that cross rail. Good girl. Walk. So that was good. She let me adjust her. So when you're going to jump, if you can keep the same speed or if you can see the spot and adjust back, then it makes it much easier. Now look, she actually came down to a walk. Good girl. Now I do want to work on her saddle gait, so I am going to speed her up a little bit. Good girl. Now she doesn't know when I just sped her up. She's like, are we going to canter? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because that's just Goldie. Like, what's next? Let me know what's next. Otherwise I'm going to think of what's next, and that's what I'm going to do next. So with Goldie, she's more than willing to work. We just got to get her to relax and try not to overthink things. You know, just be in the moment. She's way ahead of the game. She's like, what's going on next? I'll just do it next so you don't ask me to do it next. Is that okay with you? That's okay with me. Okay? And I understand her because I'm like that too. I'm always planning. What's next? What are we going to do? Goldie's like, that's why we get along. Okay. Well, that's better. Oh, now we just lost it. So again, we're practicing two things, gaiting and cantering. So if you can multitask, you can be clear with your horse. You can do two things at the same time. But again, I worked on her gait first and worked on her saddle gait some. Okay. Now she's doing good. She's kind of in and out of it. There, she's too fast. But the only way to get her to relax, she's just got to practice. And my whole body is relaxed right now. I don't have any leg on it. Oh, I lied. I must have had some. Because look, I took my legs off and she sounds, good girl. You have learned. But I don't have much, okay? And I just kind of bring my energy up because she's sensitive. So the sensitive ones, try not to override them. You know, think of what you want. If they do it, that's all you need to do. And then always play a little, and then a little more, and a little more. You never want to be harsh with these ones. Okay. So let's try and go for another can. Well, she's pulling a little bit. You're okay. You're ready? You see the pull. Canter. So I like to use the word, because I use the word on the ground, so they learn it. She's throwing her head and kind of half cantering and not cantering. Let's use the pull, because she's not cantering that well. That's better. I'm going to adjust her right here. Now we got to a bad spot there. That can happen. I tried to adjust her and she didn't adjust. Now we're half cantering. And I asked her to move up, but I stayed back a little bit in case she didn't do it. Now she has a better canter. See how that jump helps? But you stay in a little bit at the 2 point. Good girl. And that was a little bit bigger spot, but she moved up. Now she's hard trotting. Good girl. Walk. Good girl. Now I'm going to shut her down. We don't want to hard trot. Gaiting's okay. But most owners of gaited horses don't want to fall into a trot because it's so bouncy. So we just come back to a walk. So she did pretty good. Now I'm going to walk some circles. Try to get her to relax. Yeah. But the hard part with some of them is you want to go slow, right? With some of them, when you go slow, they can't hold the canter. They just start gaiting. So sometimes you got to go a little bit fast in the beginning or use a bunch of pulls to help you to get that canter motion. And then from there, you can start slowing it down. So, you know, we had some good circles. We had some so-so circles. Now, my circle of pulls, if I'm going to canter, which I've tried some before, it's very hard to do on their back because it's such a small circle and there's only a couple strides in between. It's doable, but when the horse is not paying attention, it can be difficult. So it'd be nice if I had more pulls and I had a bigger circle, then I would use more of them. Okay. So let's pull. We're going to turn on the haunches because she's okay at it, but she's not. No, that's your butt. So we want her shoulders to move. So you see, I just stopped her when she started doing the wrong thing. Because I was like, no, that's not it. And that's a normal thing. Lots of horses confuse to turn on the forehand and the haunches. Because they're like, I don't even get this. I want to move my shoulders one direction and my butt the other way. All right, so first let's go to gaiting and see what we get. So you can see her throwing her head a little bit. You just got to work through it, you know. Sometimes it's a mare, they don't feel good. Sometimes they're just being moody because of their hormones. Sometimes their back or something is sore. So it didn't seem like her back was sore. I checked that before I got on. But this is my saddle, not her saddle, so it could be bothering her some. Okay. So when they do that saddle gait, again, there's not as much head shake, but there's clear 4 beats, and we shouldn't be bouncing up and down. So see me bounce up and down? So I want to do a little shoulder in or a little leg yield, and that'll usually smooth that out in some of these horses. But you got to hold them as you push them over so they understand. Now that's quite smooth. Okay, so now we're going to try and walk, and we're going to try and go over our cross rail. So now it'll be my left leg I ask her to canter with. I'm going to half hold, shift my weight to the left, and left leg canter. And see how she picked it up so much better? She cut in, but this is her better lead. So this lead, because she's better, I can bend her a little bit and try to work on that because she leans in like an airplane. She's still a little fast, but that's okay. Now there she moved out, so that was good. And there she's a little slower, so let's reward her, shut her down, bring her back to the walk, and then slowly go back to her saddle gait, or try to. Okay? So she did better to the right, but you saw she cut way in and we ended up kind of going over that other pole. So that tells me, yeah, she's more balanced. She probably cantered on that lead on trail, but she cuts in. So she still needs work on that. But at least it feels better to the right than it does to the left. So I'm trying to make her go a little faster without hitting the pace, but she is a little tense because we're doing the canter, so I got to be careful. Because when they're tense and then you speed up, they usually go towards the pace if it's Pacey horse, because they're tense in their back. So remember, if you're feeling a little bounce, it means you're not hard pacing, but you're step pacing. Try your lateral movements. Try a little leg yield, try a little shoulder in, try moving their haunches. And the horse might bite you like she is. She's pulling on the bit some of the time. And I know she's tired. Even though she's like an Energizer bunny, she's like, I've been in this arena a long time. Okay, so that's better. Now she's getting a little step pacey, so I'm just going to push her over and leave her alone. Just kind of drop her and see what she does. So again, I'd like her to just gait with her head kind of level with the horn or a little below it so she relaxes her back. I know. You'll get back on trail soon. Okay, so now we're going to try for the canter again. So I'll go back to walking, make sure my reins are short enough. I know she's going to cut in. Look up, and then left leg canter. That's hard when you ask for the canter and, you know, they're unbalanced. You got to be ready with your hands to help them. Now, her canter's not so good, so let's go a little faster. That feels a little better, even though I'm going faster. But you're trying to get a real canter. Sometimes have such a good canter. That's what happens when they just do it on trail. You don't do it in the arena. Good girl. So she's kind of between cantering. Okay, sometimes you get there, this wrong spot, because you try to adjust the horse to get to the right spot. But if they don't listen, you don't get to a good spot. Yeah. So if you keep getting the wrong spot, what do? You either speed up or slow down. Good girl. Now we're going to walk. So we're going to walk, and then a little saddle gait. So when you're going over poles and stuff, and you're like, I get to the wrong spot every time, you know, the horse either chips in or takes a big step. You're either going too wide or too shallow, means you're cutting your turn, or your speed is changing. You're trying to keep the same speed so the horse can figure out where to leave the ground, or you're shifting your weight too much. Okay, but that stuff happens. So again, if you, like 3 times, you're sure you got to the center of the pole or the jump, and you're like, I got it wrong every time. Do something different. Either try to go slower or try to go a little faster. And again, when you're cantering poles, you see I'm up in a half seat. You don't have to be in a half seat. You can just sit. And other things to tell you, some days this is going to be fantastic. You're going to have a good day. And then some days it's going to be bad because the horse is tired. It's not in the mood. Its muscles are sore. So some days you just got to realize, well, this is not going well today. Let's not do that. Let's do something else instead. You try to make it the best it can be, you know, and then you're like, okay, that's enough. I'll do something else instead. And sometimes it's your footing, like they did something to the footing and it's too deep or they haven't dragged it, so it's bad. And you're like, oh, it's just the footing. So let's go on a trail ride today and forget this stuff. Okay, so just know, or go back to something you did do well before you started trying this. See your head going up and down? She's like, I've had enough of this day. Okay, so here, we're going to try for the canter again. Canter. Good girl. So that was a pretty good canter departure. Because again, we're trying to get her not to scoot into her canter. Now I'm kind of pumping because she fell out of the canter. Oh, you get it all. So did this one. She kind of weaved and then we just lost our canter. That was better. That's not like Goldie did a whole bunch of jumping before she got here, so I don't expect her to be great. But the jump does help you get a better canter. Good girl. Now that she's got a good canter, I don't want to canter around 20 times. I'm going to come back to the walk. I'm going to let her walk a little bit. Okay. And then we're going to go back to the left because that was the best direction. Now she's hot, she's sweaty. You're wobbling all over, girl. And so let's go the other way. Now I just want to do just a little bit more to the left since the left is her bad direction. But you guys watching this, you know, if you did it good to the left and pretty good to the right, just quit. Because once you push it and you try to do some more, you can't stop until you get it right or you're teaching the horse the wrong thing. Okay. Your speed up. It's all right. I'm not doing anything but cantering. It's much better canter. Now she's getting over those things. We're just not getting to a good spot. Now we kind of lost our canter. Now that was good, wasn't it? Walk. See her, she's pulling, she's leaning on me, so I'm just holding. There we go. Now we're just going to walk. Okay? So the hard part sometimes is knowing when to quit. She's throwing her head a lot. She's hot. She's sweaty. She did what I asked. I'd like to do a little bit more, and I'd like to do a little bit more on her gait. But she did a good job, and that's enough. Okay? You gotta know when enough is enough, and not to push them past the point that they're exhausted and they can't do what you want because they're too tired. Okay? Well, so overall, she did very well. We just started working on her canter last week, and she could canter, but they said she was fast, and she kind of squirted into her canter. So that's why we're trying to get the lead better and get her a little bit more of a rocking horse canter. So if you see my video when I have like 3 or 4 poles in a row, and I'm working the horse at the canter over it, that is something that would help her as well. And those are things, you know, if you have an arena, you can do it in the winter, and gives you something to work on. All right, hope that helps.